Hello, my name's David Kearns. I'm Managing Director of Expert Investigations, a nationwide commercial detective investigation agency. People often ask me what kinds of dishonesty we have in the workplace because people always immediately consider issues of theft and fraud. Dishonesty in the workplace is significantly more than just theft and fraud, and actually it goes from both the criminal arena to the civil arena when we start looking at aspects of employment legislation. Naturally, we always will think of theft and of fraud, and I can tell you after 16 years working within the commercial sector, there is not one item that is not of value to be stolen from an organisation. It doesn't matter whether it's a finished product, whether it's a raw material, whether it's an agent that is used in a process such as a lubricant, a cutting tool. We have seen issues of theft of bike racks, theft of ball bearings, theft of raw materials in the form of metal, theft of plastics, recyclable material. If you think that you have an item that is not stealable, or you are not subject or vulnerable to be able to be suffering from a theft from an employee, then you are very, very much mistaken. There is a marketplace for absolutely everything nowadays. Fraud, that goes across every kind of business, and it can be all kinds of fraud. It can be committed at director level, and it can be committed at middle and lower management level. It can be anything from statement fraud, card misappropriation, raising false suppliers, raising false customers, procurement fraud. There's a whole raft of ranges of fraud across an organisation. And they're generally the criminal offences that we always consider that employees may commit, theft and fraud. But if we then look at the civil side of our employees and their contracts, and what they do within the workplace, there's a multitude of other aspects of dishonest employees. For example, false absenteeism, long-term false absenteeism. Somebody's off long-term from sick from work, you are paying them full pay, and they are not turning up for work. Quite often we have found that an individual that is falsely absent from work will be involved in another business, will be starting their own business up, and while they are absent from work, you as the employer are funding their startup because they're off long-term sick, they're receiving full pay for up to 6 months, and you're funding the start of their business. We're not talking here about a duvet day and one person taking an individual day off because of a particular reason, having followed a football team over the weekend and not feel like coming to work on a Monday. We're looking at the longer term, which has a larger financial impact upon the organisation. Another significant aspect of dishonesty in the workplace with employees is breach of contract and post-termination clause. We have seen a significant increase over the last 3 or 4 years with regards to people breaching this element of the contract. This can have a dramatic impact on a company and organisation where you lose an individual and they have stolen data, they have stolen intellectual property, whether to go to a competing client, a competing company, or whether they are setting up on their own. And of course, if you morph everything together, that you have somebody that's off long-term sick, has stolen data, information, IP from you, the organisation, and sets up on their own, you have funded that, and there's a significant cost to you with regards to potentially what you could lose with that breach of contract and post-termination clause. Drugs in the workplace is a common issue as well. People selling drugs, we're talking about here illegal drugs, people selling drugs within the workplace. We've seen situations where people have been growing drugs in the workplace. One organisation, without their knowledge quite clearly, in an old disused bunker, had 2 employees that were growing a cannabis crop. So the dishonesty, as you're starting to see, is going further beyond just the theft and the fraud. Bullying, harassment, particularly sexist and racist, is also a criminal offence within the workplace. Now, often it will be purely dealt with as a civil issue, but again, that is an element of dishonesty in the workplace. People that are being bullied due to just their disability, their ability, their sex, their religion, any element of bullying within the workplace is a form of dishonesty. I've mentioned a number of issues there, and with clients we have to sit there and decide how we're going to investigate them. Are we going to investigate them criminally, or are we going to investigate them civilly? Predominantly within the commercial arena, we will investigate civilly. It will be a case of gathering the evidence and then dealing with the individual through the organisation to the final disposal, whatever that be. Now, the burden of proof to prove something, as you may well be aware, within the commercial and the civil environment, the burden of proof is on the balance of probability, 51%, 49%. When we're looking at proving something criminally, we have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. That is, negate all potential defences and opportunities for somebody to alibi out what they have done. My view is always investigate something, whether it's going to sit on the civil side or the criminal side, so that you take the highest burden of proof, i.e. beyond reasonable doubt, even if you are investigating it within a civil arena, because therefore you sit in the strongest position with all of your evidence. So please do consider elements of dishonesty of being theft and fraud, fraudulent claims, false absenteeism, breach of contract, post-termination clause, harassment and bullying in the workplace, drugs and alcohol. Thank you very much.